Teammates collide. Verstappen faces yet another reliability problem. Lance Stroll scarred for life, and the title rivalry heats up. This is the most unexpected race of the season so far. This is the Azerbaijan Grand Prix race review. So I was gonna put the video for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix about 2 weeks back. It had to be there at that time. I had a bit of a problem with the qualifying video. It was actually having some technical problems, so I could not talk about it a lot. I posted it on my Facebook page. Because of those problems, I could not put a qualifying video and had some other work, so I could not put the race video as well. So it's coming out a bit late, but it was a memorable race and I had to talk about it and I had to make a video, so I'm doing it right now. So let's take a quick peek at the qualifying first. Just me and my guitar. It was a fairly straightforward qualifying on Saturday, and it was pretty standard whatever happened, so not a lot to talk about, so it will be very brisk, the qualifying section. Let us talk about the cars that were eliminated in Q1. It was P16 for Fernando Alonso in his McLaren Honda, P17 was Romain Grosjean, P18 was Marcus Ericsson, and P19 was Stoffel Van Dorn, and P20 was Julian Palmer, who could not take part in the qualifying because he had an engine failure in FP3, so his F1 days are not going well and he has to do something to change his fortunes totally. So now let us take a look at what happened in Q2. The cars that were eliminated in Q2 were Daniil Kvyat in P11, Carlos Sainz, his teammate, in P12, Kevin Magnussen in P13, and P14 was Nico Hulkenberg. P15 was Pascal Wehrlein in the Sauber. So another great effort by Pascal Wehrlein, and also Kevin Magnussen, who managed to overhaul, or rather overqualify his teammate who was in P17. So this was about Q2, and now let us talk about Q3. Q3, the whole pressure was on Ferrari because they didn't look quite as fast as the Mercedes, and Lewis Hamilton was in total control, and he managed to get the pole position. So he was on P1 and followed by his teammate. So a front row lockout for Mercedes, the second one for Mercedes this season, and it was P3 for Kimi Raikkonen and P4 for Sebastian Vettel, with an engine that was possibly running on asthma. So he had an older engine fixed into his car, and that was not giving him a lot of grunt, so he could not get above the second row. And now P5 was Max Verstappen. So P5 was Max Verstappen, and you do not usually associate Red Bull with a track that is having a 2.5 kilometer long straight at the back in sector 3, and still they managed to get Max Verstappen in at P5. It looks stunning throughout this weekend. And P6 was Sergio Perez, P7 was his teammate Esteban Ocon, P8 was Lance Stroll, the rookie who outqualified his teammate in P9, Felipe Massa, and P10 was Daniel Ricciardo after he had a crash at the chicane after the turn 5 and 6, so lost the rear of the car, and totally he collided with the wall, so he could not take part in Q3, the second run. So on the first run he had a crash, so that is how he is in P10. Now let us take a look at what happened in a very, very interesting and unpredictable race. Just me and my guitar. The race start was quite eventful, where we saw a car going wide at turn 1. The run down to turn 1 is quite small actually, but Daniil Kvyat missed his braking point, ran wide onto the runoff area, and was coming back onto the racing line when Carlos Sainz was going through turn 1. So Carlos Sainz got a little surprised by Daniil Kvyat beside him, and he lost the rear end and had a spin. And he told that Daniil Kvyat had actually come in like a madman, but it didn't look so. Now that was not the only action on turn on the lap 1. It was actually on turn 2 as well. Two important drivers actually. It was Raikkonen and Bottas. Raikkonen actually managed to jump Valtteri Bottas at turn 2, and he was going around the outside of Valtteri Bottas, whereas Bottas came in from the curbs. Actually, he mounted the curb and went on a jump and went straight into the left section of the left side bargeboard section of the Ferrari of Kimi Raikkonen, and had lots of damage. Had a front right tire puncture and front wing damage, and had to come in at the end of lap 1. And Ferrari kept on losing the bargeboard left side bargeboard winglets from its car of Kimi Raikkonen. Then we see a strange move from Red Bull, and they bring in Daniel Ricciardo at the end of lap 5. It was lap 6, I think, and they come into the pits, and it was actually the problem was that some debris was blocking the inlet to the brake cooling system, and the temperatures went very high very fast, and had to come in for a precautionary stop for Red Bull. And they had a very slick stop considering the removal of the debris, and he went out on his merry way afterwards. And then it was Carlos Sainz at the after the turn 8, no, not turn 8, turn 9, I think. Yeah, after turn 9 he had a failure with his car and had to stop at the left side of the track. It was pretty dangerous, so the FIA managed to bring out the safety car, and it was reacting to that safety car. It was both Hamilton as well as Vettel who were coming into the pits, and they had an early change from the super softs onto the soft tires at lap 13. This was actually the first of the 3 safety cars. Yes, you heard me right. It was 3 safety cars in this race, and that is why it is very unpredictable, and the unpredictability has not come in yet. So here comes the most controversial thing in the season so far. Both the title rivals clash under safety car. So it was a very unusual situation again. It was on lap 19 when the safety car was going to come in on the same lap, and Hamilton was backing up the pack. As you know, after the safety car leaves and was going into the pits, the lead car becomes the pace car, so he can set the pace. And Vettel actually thought that he brake tested himself, and actually went into the rear end of the car, the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton, and lost a bit of his front wing. He sustained a bit of a front wing damage from that crash, and because of that he was too frustrated and just went along beside Lewis Hamilton and gave him a tire punch, or a tire punch, you can call it. It was a frustrating time for Sebastian Vettel, and actually he lost a bit of a time during the race restart, and was uh, going into the clutches of the Force Indias as well as the Williams of Felipe Massa during that time. So it was not a good thing for for Sebastian Vettel, and the stewards had lots of looks towards this situation, and they ended up thinking that Sebastian Vettel would get a 10-second stop-go penalty. So he could not have a time penalty, it's a stop-go penalty. And yeah, that I would not say whose fault it is. It's going to become a big problem for me as well. But the good thing is that such kind of a rivalry actually brings interest into the sport. So you could think of great rivalries like Senna and Prost, what they did to the sport, and now it is going to be legends like Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton, the newer legends, the legends of the new era of F1 are now bringing interest into the sport. I wouldn't want to comment about the crash itself. It's been a 50-50 situation, and I think Vettel got the penalty. It was pretty fair, and he was frustrated at the time. Giving an apology, it's all done and dusted now. After having given an apology publicly. Now there was another controversial moment that was for a team now after the restart at lap 20, and it was both the Force Indias getting into each other and colliding at turn 3. It was Sergio Perez who got pinned by Esteban Ocon, and it was race done for Sergio Perez after that. It was a huge damage that he sustained with the front wing just coming off and having a bit of a floor damage as well, I think, and had to retire the car and went into the pits. And Esteban Ocon continued. He had a bit of a damage as well, and he had a puncture, his rear right puncture, I think, and he went on. He had a tire change and he went on again. But this led to another safety car. So this was the second safety car. Another problem with the safety car this weekend was that the safety car was being driven very slowly, and Lewis Hamilton had a lot of problems, and he was keeping on shouting on the radio that the safety car needs to go fast. This is pretty unsafe for the drivers. So that was another situation, and Force India, there would have been a lot of tension in the drivers debrief after the race. So that was another controversial moment of the race. And because of that, there was a lot of debris on the track, and as Fernando Alonso told in his radio, it's not very safe for the cars and for the drivers as well. So the FIA actually stopped the race with a red flag, and everyone had to come back into the pit lane. So everyone were in the pit lane, and lots of repairs going on the cars, and the rear end of the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton after that crash with Sebastian Vettel, the front wing of Sebastian Vettel. Yeah, there's certain constraints regarding the servicing that you can do on the car, but whatever could be done, it was done. And also Kimi Raikkonen as well as Sergio Perez both going onto the track after supposedly retiring the car. So they went back onto the racetrack and were one lap down. Another very interesting thing that happened was Daniel Ricciardo. What a move that was on lap 23. He was behind both the Williams, who were in P3 and P4. So Williams were doing pretty well, Massa in P3 and Lance Stroll in P4. And that's what I'm saying, Lance Stroll in P4. It was Daniel Ricciardo in P5. So at the restart, Daniel Ricciardo had a really good dive bomb move at turn 1, and what a good late braking move by Daniel Ricciardo, and he went from P5 right up to P3 and into the podium positions with that single move at turn 1, and that was a sensational move, one of the best of this race, and he's been doing that this race for about 2 to 3 times. So that was a pretty good move by Daniel Ricciardo. On lap 25, it was another possible retirement, and it is Felipe Massa with a broken rear damper, and he was losing positions left and right, and Kevin Magnussen made a very similar move as Daniel Ricciardo did on lap 23, going down the inside of Felipe Massa as well as another Renault, I think. That was a pretty cool move, and on the same lap, Nico Hülkenberg managed to clip the inside at turn 7, and it was a pretty unusual kind of a crash, and he just went through the escape route at turn 8, and there was no safety concern, so there was no safety car here again. So another retirement was Nico Hülkenberg. He was running promisingly in a very good position in the points, and he lost his position due to this oversteer moment at turn 7. So meanwhile, on lap 29, Lewis Hamilton had a strange problem that you don't expect a race car to have, and it was a loose headrest at the rear, at the back end of his neck. I think the headrest was just coming up, and for about one lap he tried to catch it with his hands and hold it in place, but then due to safety concerns, Mercedes had to bring him in for a pit stop, and that was a very slick pit stop of just 10 seconds, removing and attaching the headrest in position. That was a pretty good pit stop from them. And when Lewis Hamilton was just coming in for that precautionary pit stop, the FIA released that it was released on the TV screen that Sebastian Vettel was going to get a 10-second stop-go penalty. So the title driver is getting a bit of an unlucky moment in this race, and both of them getting effectively 10-second pit stops. So now it was Daniel Ricciardo sailing away with a victory. So Red Bull getting a victory at a track. Again, I'm going to emphasize, at a track having 2.5 kilometers long straight. and that's a huge achievement. And think about it, Daniel Ricciardo actually came in for a early stop, having some debris blocking his brakes. So what a turnaround, what a change of fortunes for him, and he won the race comfortably. So the final classifications was Daniel Ricciardo who won the race pretty handsomely, and it was P2 was, you must be thinking Lance Stroll, but no, it was Valtteri Bottas. What a stunning return from the Mercedes driver, and he just finished 7 tenths ahead of Lance Stroll, and Lance Stroll just had this to say on the radio that, oh, he got me on the last straight. And Lance Stroll, a pretty stunning drive for a man who's got his first points just last race in Canada, in P9, and now finishing on the podium. It must be a dream come true, and for sure this was a very good race and a very good drive, considering that he had three great drivers behind him. It was Valtteri Bottas behind him, and behind those two was Sebastian Vettel ahead of Lewis Hamilton. So all these four cars were pretty close to each other, about 1 second each, the gap. So considering that, it was a very good drive from Lance Stroll under pressure, and he finished in the podium positions. Sebastian Vettel managed to extend his lead by 2 points after finishing P4, and P5 was his title rival Lewis Hamilton. P6 was Esteban Ocon, and P7 was Kevin Magnussen in the Haas, and that was a good drive again. P8 was Carlos Sainz. P9 McLaren Honda of Fernando Alonso. So McLaren Honda finally scoring a couple of points, and that's a blessing in disguise for the McLaren Honda team. And P10 was Pascal Wehrlein with yet another point for Sauber. So Sauber still in front of McLaren Honda, but the first points for them this season for McLaren Honda, and that's a blessing in disguise, as I told you. So a stunning race, no one could have predicted, and I'm really sure my predictions would have gone pretty wrong if I had put the video out. And I had not predicted this. This was a very strange race, and people are just saying that this might be the race for decades. So one of the best race of the decade, this one, and a pretty good race. That was a crazy race. This was the Azerbaijan Grand Prix race review. If you like the video, please do like and comment regarding your views about the race, and what you thought would happen and what happened. I think after 2016 I thought it to be a pretty straightforward race, but it was not at all. And you can follow me on Facebook at the Lollipop Man Talks, the page, Facebook page, and on Twitter at lollipop_talks, and also on Instagram, the Lollipop Man Talks. So for more updates on my channel, so you can follow me on these mediums as well. So see you later. I'll be coming back for the Austrian Grand Prix race, and as well as the qualifying review. See you later. Bye.